Good evening and welcome to News Night. I'm Amritpal Singh. Well, over the next 1 hour, we'll tell you what happened around the country and around the world in the day just gone by. Well, India's vaccination drive is picking up pace. A cumulative of about 7.3 crore doses have been administered as of today. There is a surge, however, in cases from 8 states and union territories. Globally, the fight against COVID is going on, even as Bangladesh has announced imposition of a nationwide lockdown from Monday, and France imposed its lockdown from today. All schools have been shut for the next 3 weeks, and to deal with the third surge of or the third wave of COVID infections in that country. That and much more over the next 1 hour. But first up, the headlines we're tracking at this hour. India's cumulative vaccination coverage exceeds 7.3 crore doses. 8 states and union territories report a steep rise in daily new cases. 81.42% of new cases are from these 8 states. Maharashtra reports the highest daily new cases. After imposing night curfew, Pune now shuts down restaurants and malls during daytime as well. Bangladesh announces a countrywide lockdown from Monday. The country registers the highest single-day spike since March last year. France imposes its third lockdown. Schools closed for 3 weeks as the country battles a third wave of infections. Netherlands halts the use of Astrazeneca's COVID vaccine. Union Health Minister approves the National Policy for Rare Diseases 2021. The policy aims to lower high cost of treatment for rare diseases. Increased focus on indigenous research. Campaigning heats up in poll-bound states. Prime Minister addresses rallies in Assam and West Bengal. Says Mamata Banerjee is staring at defeat after the first 2 phases of polls in Bengal. Leaders of various political parties campaign in poll-bound states. Home Minister Amit Shah and JP Nadda on the campaign trail in Tamil Nadu. Nirmala Sitharaman and Amit Shah address public meetings in Kerala. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi holds a roadshow in Kerala. Mamata Banerjee and Yogi Adityanath campaign in West Bengal. Environment Minister Prakash Javadekar expresses concern over climate change, calls for effective steps to stop effects of climate change as India is affected by the change. Taiwan President visits the victims of Friday's train crash. She meets the victims in the hospital. Flags across Taiwan fly at half-mast. At least 50 people were killed in the crash, while 100 others were injured. India extends condolences over loss of lives. And in sports, Italian tennis player Yannick Sinner reaches the Miami Open final. 19-year-old second youngest player to reach the final of the Miami Open after Rafa Nadal to face Poland's Hubert Hurkacz in the submit clash. So those were the headlines we're tracking at this hour, and now the news in detail. Amid surge in COVID cases in the country, states have tightened measures to control the spread of the coronavirus. 8 states have shown a steep rise in the COVID daily new cases. 81.42% of these new cases are from these 8 states and union territories. In a significant development, the cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country crossed the 7.3 crore mark on Saturday.
Many states and union territories have been witnessing new surge of daily new COVID-19 cases for the past few weeks, even as the COVID-19 vaccination drive picked up pace with the beginning of the third phase for inoculation of people above 45 years from April 1st. The centre is all geared up to tackle the pandemic. It has asked the states to focus more on RT-PCR tests and accelerate the vaccination rate.
कोरोना का जो 1 साल था उसने हमारे इसी संयम, इसी सावधानी और प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी के अग्रणी भूमिका, संकट मोचक की भूमिका ने कोरोना को परास्त किया। आज जो परिस्थितियां हैं, उन परिस्थितियों को भी हम इसी संयम और सावधानी से परास्त कर सकते हैं।
In a significant development in the fight against COVID-19, the cumulative number of COVID-19 vaccine doses administered in the country has crossed 7.3 crore mark. 8 states including Maharashtra, Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, Delhi, Tamil Nadu, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab and Madhya Pradesh have shown a steep rise in daily COVID new cases. 81.42% of the new cases are reported from these 8 states. 89,129 new cases were registered in the last 24 hours.
I understand this may be because of inappropriate COVID behavior. The public is not following the proper COVID behavior. Government is doing all steps which are required, and now is public have to follow the protocols, and they have to understand the severity of disease.
Maharashtra reported the highest daily new cases. Maharashtra Chief Minister Uddhav Thackeray warned on Friday of a full lockdown to curb coronavirus infections if people did not limit their movement, as the country hit a 6-month high for daily cases. Meanwhile, the state government has decided that all state board students across Maharashtra from class 1 to class 8 will be promoted to the next class without appearing for any exam. State Cabinet Minister and NCP leader Nawab Malik urged the people to follow the SOPs to contain the spread of coronavirus infections.
महाराष्ट्र में कोरोना के केसेस 50,000 के करीब प्रतिदिन होने जा रहे हैं। निश्चित रूप से चिंता की बात है। कड़े कदम उठाने के सिवा और कोई पर्याय नहीं है। निश्चित रूप से अस्पतालों में अभी तो नहीं, लेकिन इसी तरह से आंकड़े बढ़ते रहे तो बेड्स की किल्लत हो सकती है।
Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia received the coronavirus vaccine jab at the Maulana Azad Medical College in Delhi. Meanwhile, Delhi recorded 3,567 fresh COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours, while the positivity rate rose to 4.48%. With the new infections, the number of cumulative cases rose to over 6.72 lakhs.
पूरे देश में किसी भी राज्य ने पर मिलियन के हिसाब से जो भी एवरेज है उससे हम 5 गुना ज़्यादा टेस्ट कर रहे हैं, सबसे ज़्यादा टेस्ट कर रहे हैं। तो दिल्ली के अंदर जो टेस्टिंग है एक्सपर्ट्स के हिसाब तो 40-50 हज़ार होनी चाहिए मैक्सिमम, तो हम उससे दुगनी टेस्टिंग कर रहे हैं। टेस्टिंग तो बहुत ज़्यादा कर रहे हैं। टेस्टिंग का ट्रेसिंग भी कर रहे हैं हम लोग, जो उनके कॉन्टैक्ट्स हैं उनको ट्रेस कर रहे हैं, आइसोलेट भी कर रहे हैं।
Amid a spike in the number of COVID-19 cases, Uttar Pradesh government has decided to extend the closure of schools up to class 8 till April 11th. Earlier, the schools were shut till 31st March. The state government is making all efforts to ensure strict compliance of COVID-19 protocol in the state.
पूरी सरकार अलर्ट है और स्वास्थ्य महकमे को, गृह विभाग को, सबको अलर्ट किया गया है कि जो कोविड के नियम कानून है उनका सख्ती से पालन कराएं, और सभी अस्पतालों को भी अलर्ट रहने कहा गया कि जितनी भी बेड्स की आवश्यकता होगी, संसाधनों की, सरकार किसी भी स्तर पर कोई कमी नहीं होने देगी।
5 states, namely Maharashtra, Karnataka, Chhattisgarh, Kerala and Punjab, cumulatively account for 77.3% of the total active cases in the country. Maharashtra alone accounts for nearly 60% of the total active caseload of the country. A total of 44,202 recoveries were registered in the last 24 hours, whereas 714 deaths were reported in the last 24 hours. Bureau Report, DD India.
And globally also, the surge in coronavirus cases continues, with those infected surpassing 130 million. Weekly infections in the United States hit their highest point since late February, even with vaccinations at record levels. Bangladesh announced a nationwide lockdown from Monday after infections and deaths due to COVID reached the highest level since March last year. Passenger trains, domestic flights are also suspended in Bangladesh.
Amid a sharp rise in COVID infection and related deaths over the last several days, Bangladesh has announced a countrywide lockdown from Monday. Announcing the decision, Bangladesh's Federal Minister Obaidul Qadir on Saturday urged people to properly follow health guidelines and wear face masks. On Friday, nearly 6,900 people were found corona positive in Bangladesh, which is the highest single-day spike since March last year, when the first corona case was detected in the country. Organizations providing emergency services, however, will remain out of the purview of the lockdown. Industries will also remain open and employees will have to work in shifts following health guidelines. Meanwhile, in Argentina, President Alberto Fernandez has reported positive for COVID. President Fernandez had been inoculated with the Russian Sputnik V vaccine in January this year. Turkey has begun administering the COVID-19 vaccine developed by Pfizer and BioNTech, introducing a second shot in a campaign that began mid-January as new cases reached all-time high. Turkey has delivered nearly 16.5 million doses in its vaccination efforts, including more than 7 million people who received a second dose of the vaccine. Turkey had recently imposed new weekend lockdowns in most of its provinces as cases reached all-time high nationwide. Turkey now ranks 5th globally in the highest number of daily cases. Meanwhile, Netherlands has temporarily suspended the use of the Astrazeneca COVID-19 vaccine for people under the age of 60 following the death of a woman who had received a shot. AstraZeneca said it was working with Dutch authorities to address any questions they had. Bureau Report, DD India.
And French President Emmanuel Macron imposed a third nationwide lockdown on Saturday in view of the surge in cases of the COVID cases. The decision was taken amid heavy criticism from other European countries, which said that France decided not to go under a third lockdown in early January, despite being hit by the virus, unlike them. With the death toll in the country nearing about 1 lakh, intensive care units in the hardest hit regions are at a breaking point in the country, and with a slower than planned vaccine rollout, Macron was forced to abandon his plan of keeping the country open to protect the economy. Schools have been shut down for 3 weeks. And that brings us to our In Focus tonight. Our In Focus tonight is severe restrictions to lockdowns. The world battles fresh surge in COVID cases. So this is our In Focus tonight that you see on your screens. Severe restrictions to lockdowns, the world battles COVID cases. And to discuss more on that, I'm joined by Professor Vijay Raghavan. He's the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India. And also joining me on the show is Dr. Naresh Trehan. He's the Chairman of Medanta Medicity. Both gentlemen, many thanks for being on the show. First to you, Dr. Raghavan, how do you see the surge in the cases and what is being done by various state governments? Is it enough to deal, or are we looking at a situation which could go further downhill in the coming days?
The surge now needs to be looked at in the context of how things have changed since the start of the pandemic in February, March last year in India. First of all, there's been a great learning experience amongst our healthcare workers. But our healthcare workers and frontline workers have also been vaccinated. And they've, this combination allows us, with increased beds being put in place, to address key problems as cases come into hospitals. So that's the good part. Our citizens also know what COVID appropriate behavior needs to be done. There has been widely reported, laxity on that front. That needs to come back. So these are two major components which we can deal with. A third positive component is the availability of vaccines. As stockpiles become more and more available, as supply becomes more available, vaccination is spreading very rapidly. So given all of these three, changes in the virus and changes in our behavior are dominant causes for the spread. We can handle changes in our behavior ourselves. We must do that because we have vaccines and better hospital facilities on hand. So it's very important to stress COVID-appropriate behavior as we continue to analyze sequences of virus, see which of them are potentially likely to be causes of spread, but therefore all the more reason to intensify COVID-appropriate behavior.
Okay. Dr. Trehan, let me understand from you why this surge, not just in India but globally also. Are we not adhering to protocols enough? Have we thrown caution to the winds? Has fatigue just set into us? Or is it that is it more to that, or is it that we are testing more, therefore the reality is coming out clearer? What is the reason for this surge?
So if you look at the pattern around the world, this pandemic is following a certain definite pattern which has a lot of similarities to the Spanish flu.
Okay.
The Spanish flu also had the second and third wave, and the second wave actually spread much faster, which is happening in India today, that the numbers are climbing so rapidly that it beats all the curves of the first wave. So we are now in a situation where we know that we are faced with a very dangerous situation. And what had happened in the middle was that with the declining numbers, there was a certain amount of, you can say, euphoria in the people, saying that, they had the fatigue, they've been locked up for a year, so everybody just was kind of breaking out. And then you have what you saw on visuals of the Holi, Kumbh, election campaigns going on, where lakhs and lakhs of people are mixing without any COVID behavior. So right now we need to be very serious about containing it, because we cannot afford another lockdown. That would be quite damaging to when we talk about life and livelihood. So to go back, what we are doing is, we should do is, without lockdown, go down into lockdown behavior where it is appropriate. That means that those three things that we have talked about every day for the last year plus, is that the three COVID behavior, appropriate behaviors have to be followed by everybody, because that's the first line of defense. We don't have a cure. We have three things at our disposal. One is what the public will do, and that is what they can do is to be religious about behaving with the masking, with the hand hygiene and distancing. There is no substitute for that. We must go back to that without stopping going to work or doing things that we are doing right now, except that the social events like big marriages, like big parties, like all these congregations, they must be stopped right now. And strictly the regulation should be put in place and everybody made to adhere to it. That's like a very important first line of defense. Second is, of course, testing, tracing and containment wherever it is required. Strict containment without, like I said, to try to avoid a full national lockdown. The third thing is vaccination. We already know that a fair number of a percentage of our population has already developed antibodies when we checked them, even before we did a study at Medanta, where all our frontline workers, health workers, before we vaccinate them, we have started a study of studying the antibody load. So we have found that upwards of 45% had antibodies already. That means they have been exposed because we are taking care of the COVID patients. And then if you add on to that adequate vaccination, we should go towards herd immunity when we reach about 60 to 70% of the population having either developed antibodies on their own or induced by vaccination. So vaccination is to be accelerated as fast as possible. We only have 2 vaccines right now, and we have, I'm told that there are 6 crore doses available from Serum Institute a month and 1 crore from biotech. So those, if put together, 7 crores can be given, but we need to reach 30 crores. So we need to introduce the next vaccines as soon as their data shows that they are safe and efficacy is approved. We should keep adding them. There is enough facilities on the ground to be able to administer the dosage. Administration is not the problem. The government has done a very good job of putting the price as 250. We can do many, many more if we have the vaccine available. There is a certain amount of shortage. We must sharpen the distribution system. And if we can do that, I think that we can achieve our targets much faster. So within the next 2-3 months, if we can reach 30 crores, we would have actually done a great service. So till then, and even after you receive the vaccine, you must adhere to the COVID behavior, because it will take 6 months to a year for everybody to develop that kind of immunity, and then maybe we can start relaxing. So these are the warnings that we have to give. One more little thing I would like to add, that the youth, young people, feel that they will, even if they get the infection, they will sail through it. They're right to a lot of extent, but they live it with their parents, they live with their grandparents, so the infection is spreading.
They're putting them at risk.
So be careful about that.
All right. Dr. Train, you make a lot of important points. We'll discuss them one by one. Professor Raghavan, let me bring you in on this particular point. Countries, Bangladesh has imposed a lockdown from Monday. France has imposed it from today. Schools are shut. We've seen some of our state governments also threaten lockdown. Pune imposed a night curfew. Now they've said restaurant, malls will not open in the daytime also. We know the hardships the lockdown brought. But does the situation warrant that if we are seeing 90,000 new cases and if the trend goes upward, what are the lessons that we've learned? What is the way forward?
Seriousness of the situation on one side and the learnings we have made on the other. The situation is of course very serious, but we've also, as Dr. Trayan has pointed out, increased our hospital beds and understanding and capacity, and frontline workers, as I said, and hospital workers have been vaccinated. In this situation, public behavioral change and local attention to whether we must keep shops or malls open locally, wherever testing has indicated hotspots or strong spreading events. That is something which can have immediate effect. Now, when you do that and you combine that with more testing and tracking, you will know whether you're going downwards or staying the same or going upwards. So these are very important things which are ongoing. So rather than ask questions such as lockdown or not, we should ask what should we do in every single locality, in a large housing colony, in a small city area. How much testing is there? What kinds of mutations are there? What kinds of COVID appropriate behavior have you taken? So this requires a great amount of discipline as well as coordination. I can understand that people are tired of this, but it's important that this be done now to prevent major measures which impact on livelihood. That is not necessary if you do the right things now.
Okay. But Professor Raghavan, if you compare, I remember, let's look at last March. No flights, no trains, the roads were empty, a lockdown was imposed. Today trains run, metro runs, people are taking flights. So psychologically people feel that, well, it's back to normal. These numbers that we keep telling people on television, or the spokespersons of the health ministry, or doctors like Dr. Trayan, or scientists like you keep telling, doesn't register with people. When you tell them that so and so number increased or 90,000 in a day, the seriousness of it does not dawn upon people. So is there a middle way?
We must find that middle way. There's no question about it, because it's not that you have to take only very strong measures for people to grasp what is happening. I mean, it's our communication which constantly needs to be nuanced and changed so that people understand that you can have livelihood as well as take precautions. It's a lot of effort, it's a lot of discipline, but again, just as young people have to be careful, not just for the small frequency amongst them which will be affected, but also for their parents and family members. As vaccination ramps up, more and more flexibilities will be available. But everything needs to go together, and we must persuasively tell people that, look, this is good for all of us.
Okay. Dr. Train, I want to come to vaccination, but before that, I want to go to one point that you raised about you said that the way this pandemic is going is the way Spanish flu went. The second or the third waves were even more deadlier than the first wave. Finally, how did Spanish flu end? How did it? How did the health of people come back?
So there was, when herd immunity developed, it started tapering off. At that time, there was no vaccine. There were very little you could do medically to contain the virus. But today we are well armed. We know how to take care of. So the many deaths, the number of deaths, then about over 5 million, or some figures say 50 million people died around the world. But the point is that today we have been able to contain the number of deaths. We have been able to treat people much more effectively. That's different. But the point is that when you get lulled by data which shows you that the numbers are down in double figures, Delhi was double figures, everybody threw caution to the wind. And then they started socializing, going, you look at a scenario. You have a dinner for 10 people on a table. Everybody takes off their mask, even if they had it. They are sitting there for 1 hour eating next to each other. If even one of them has a viral load, it can spread to all 10, and that's what's happened. That you can see groups and groups. And now the other difference is that it has started, the news from smaller towns, from the villages has started coming of positivity. Now that means it has run through the whole country. Now, it's not that Maharashtra is burning today and it won't happen in other states. Of course it will happen. People are traveling, we just need only one thing, to hunker down and be totally religious about the COVID appropriate behavior, which if any and every Indian, if they do not follow it today, after all the time spent by experts, doctors, news media, every day we are tired of talking about it. But people are now, I think, also getting a little scared. That's my understanding now, that because things have gone out of control, now people are beginning to think. But the main group to actually address is the fact that the young people, when they were going to clubs and big events, over Holi, there were like almost raves everywhere. We need to stop all that. It is unnecessary. We don't have to have big weddings. We can go back to our 15, 20.
It's not the time for it. It's not the time for it yet.
This way you can basically do the preventive lockdown without locking down.
Okay. All right.
And I'll give you one more fact. When you talk about vaccine, you asked me the question, or I can give you the answer even before you asked it, is the fact that like right now, the Haryana government, in its wisdom, has allowed us to vaccinate, go to factories, use their medical facilities with a strict protocol to vaccinate people in their workplace. RWAs, each one of them has a small clinic which we have been running for them, and in those we have started. And people have come, the vaccine hesitancy is also disappearing. Because it's next to their house, they don't have to travel to a hospital where they believe they may catch some infection. All those things, measures we are taking. We just need more supply of vaccine.
Absolutely.
I know the government is doing what it can. And as soon as if we get 10 crores a month, in 3 months we would have vaccinated 30 crores. We have already reached over 7 crores.
Absolutely.
So we are nearing our target. We just need to intensify COVID behavior, and intensify our testing and tracing and containment. If these three-pronged strategy works, we can avoid a lockdown, which I said would be economically very, very difficult for people.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you, Dr. Trehan. I live in Gurgaon. Your, in fact, hospital got in touch with the RWO of where I live, and there was a vaccination camp organized in my society. A lot of people, my neighbors, got vaccinated. They said we wouldn't have taken the trouble of going to a hospital, the seriousness of the vaccine, because there were questions, we weren't really decided. Once it came to our door, when by seeing other people, we did get vaccinated. Professor Raghavan, then let me ask you, is door-to-door vaccination the answer? Is it feasible? What are the hiccups? Will that fasten up vaccination in the country?
Historically, by the way, for example, during smallpox vaccinations and other vaccinations, India has had vaccines going to people on large scale. Now, the point to keep in mind over there is there was not a specific pressure or a time to vaccinate. Childhood immunization kept happening steadily, and there were times when vaccines went to people's homes, then to Anganwadis and places where mothers could bring their children and so on and so forth. Now, this is a different case where we must keep in mind that we're vaccinating a huge population and substantially adults. And therefore, vaccination should be at sites which have some kind of basic healthcare structures available to look at potential adverse events. Now, how that is structured, whether those are temporary structures or established structures in housing societies or in factories, there's a lot of flexibility, and as supply increases, those flexibilities will come. But attention needs to be paid at the site of vaccination, in this case, a little more than well-established vaccines and vaccination programs of years ago.
Okay. Dr. Train, I'll give you the last question. You made a point, you said you did a study in your hospital where 45% of the people who had come for vaccination, 45% had developed antibodies already. There is a lot of concern regarding the vaccines, about the efficacy of the vaccines, particular vaccines, say Astrazeneca, Netherlands today halted its, Germany had earlier halted, Canada had halted that. They're saying some thrombosis takes place. First of all, please clear the air on that. And secondly, people are saying, well, if it takes 1 year and we already could have got COVID, we are not aware, so we would have developed antibodies in us, so why go in for vaccination? There is a lot of concern regarding the vaccines in the country, right or wrong?
Well, there are media reports and there is social media and there are all sorts of doubts raised, but I'll put it in perspective for you. If you look at the government's policy, and which has been followed almost around the world, is you have a vulnerable population. In that vulnerable population, first you must immunize them to protect them from, because if they get infected, the consequences are much more severe. So having done that, you go to the next step and you say 45 and above with comorbidities, or 60 and above, and then you say now we've opened it to 40, 45 years, because below that, maybe 40 would be the next step, and then below that, even if people get it, they may not have serious consequences, but majority of them. So that is the vaccination strategy, and we are following it. And like Dr. Raghavan said, we follow the protocols that are made for safety of the patients. The first aid given on site, next to a hospital, ambulances standing there, all those things, safety measures have been done.
Okay.
The next thing is the point reports that come out of Europe or some other countries about consequences of vaccination, maybe thrombosis or deaths and things like that. But if you look at our own data, this study was published by ICMR also, that 4.5% of the people are getting reinfections. And that is a known fact, that you can get reinfected if you did not have enough antibodies, or if the strain was different. But anyway, we don't know that data yet, but we know that this is 4.5%. So that will happen. We do not have any reports from India, at least we are not aware of it, that there has been any case of death or serious consequence of thrombosis. So Western data must be looked at in its own perspective. We must look at our own perspective. So the deaths that have coincidentally happened or happened during the people who got vaccinated have been investigated, and so far no major correlation has been found. So if you look at the number of deaths COVID has caused and the number of
possible deaths the vaccine could have caused
are 0.01% of that death. Right. So you must put it in perspective. This is a safety measure, which if you are, first of all, if you are vulnerable, you have it, then the next will have it, and now you will see everybody's clamoring to get it.
Okay.
So I think that the hesitancy has gone down. Now there is embracement going on. But like I said, the limiting factor today is the fact that, and it's a real limitation, that how much vaccine can you manufacture? So India's fortunate.
So we are dealing with those challenges as well. I'm completely out of time. I'd like to thank Dr. Raghavan and Dr. Trayan, both of you, for joining us on the show. But the central message both these gentlemen are telling us is that it's not time to throw caution to the winds. The only way we can stop it is, yes, do get vaccinated if you fall in the categories that the government has allowed, and subsequently it will be relaxed, and the aim is to vaccinate each and every person. But till that happens, the only way we can fight this virus is by strictly, religiously adhering to the COVID protocols. Well, Dr. Trayan and Dr. Raghavan, many thanks for being on the show. Thank you. And the Union Health and Family Welfare Minister, Dr. Harshvardhan, approved the National Policy for Rare Diseases 2021 on Saturday. The policy document has been uploaded on the website of the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. The Rare Diseases Policy aims to lower the high cost of treatment for rare diseases with increased focus on indigenous research, with the help of a national consortium to be set up with the Department of Health Research, the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare as its convener. Increased focus on research and development of local production of medicines will lower the cost of treatment for the rare diseases. The policy also envisages the creation of a national hospital-based registry of rare diseases so that adequate data is available for definition of rare diseases and for research and development related to rare diseases within the country. The policy also focuses on early screening and prevention through primary and secondary healthcare infrastructure such as health and wellness centers and the district early intervention centers, and through counseling for the high-risk parents. Screening will also be supported by the Nidan Kendras set up by the Department of Biotechnology. All right, moving on to some other news now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday addressed 3 rallies in Assam and West Bengal ahead of the third phase of voting in the ongoing assembly elections in both the states. While Prime Minister Modi addressed a rally in Tamulpur in Assam, in West Bengal, the Prime Minister addressed one rally in Tarakeshwar and the other in Sonarpur.
After the completion of the first and second phase of assembly elections in Assam and West Bengal, focus has now shifted to campaigning for the third phase polls in the 2 states. On Saturday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed election rallies in Assam and West Bengal to woo the voters. Prime Minister's first stop was Tamulpur in Assam. Prime Minister said people of the state have decided to choose the NDA as they are against violence and want development, peace, unity and stability in the state. Slamming the Congress, PM Modi said the tools of communalism and secularism has been used by the opposition to hinder the implementation of government schemes.
दुर्भाग्य से देश में कुछ बातें ऐसी गलत चल रही है, अगर हम समाज में भेदभाव करके, समाज के टुकड़े करके अपनी वोट बैंक के लिए एक टुकड़े के लिए कुछ फेंक दें, कुछ दे दें, तो दुर्भाग्य देखिए उसको देश में सेक्युलरिज्म कहा जाता है। लेकिन अगर सबके लिए काम करे, जो भी इसके हकदार है, कोई भेदभाव बिना, कोई टिकड़े किए बिना अगर सबको देते हैं, तो फिर कहते हैं ये कम्युनल है। भाइयों बहनों, हमारा तो मंत्र है सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास।
After Assam, Prime Minister reached West Bengal where he addressed a rally at Tarakeshwar in Hooghly. He said that the people of Bengal have ensured BJP's massive victory in the first 2 phases. Attacking on West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, PM said that after the first 2 phases, it seems that Chief Minister's khela is over.
मुझे पक्का पता है हर चरण के चुनाव के साथ दीदी की ये बौखलाहट बढ़ती जाएगी। मुझ पर गालियों की बौछार भी बढ़ती जाएगी। और अब तो इलेक्शन कमीशन कहो, सुरक्षा प्रबंध वाले लोग हो, हर किसी पर हम सब जानते हैं क्रिकेट के मैदान में अगर कोई खिलाड़ी बार बार अंपायर पर सवाल उठाए तो समझो उसके खेल में खोट है। कभी ईवीएम को गाली दे, कभी चुनाव आयोग को गाली दे, तो समझो उसका खेला शेष है, उसका खेला शेष है।
Prime Minister said that double-engine government will be formed on 2nd of May, which will focus on providing double benefit, direct benefit. PM Modi held his last rally in West Bengal's Sonarpur, where he not only highlighted the achievements of his government, but also raised questions on the functioning of TMC. He said that Didi did not let the benefits of the central scheme reach the public.
दीदी की पार्टी अब कह रही है कि दीदी अब वाराणसी से लोकसभा चुनाव लड़ेगी। ये बयान आने के बाद दो बातें स्पष्ट हो जाती हैं, दो बातें साफ हो जाती है। एक तो दीदी ने बंगाल में अपनी पराजय स्वीकार कर ली है। अच्छा, दूसरी बात, दीदी अब बंगाल के बाहर अपने के लिए जगह तलाश करने में जुट गई है।
Polling in West Bengal are being held in 8 phases. In the first 2 phases, more than 8% voting took place. Polling for the third phase will be held on 6th of April. The counting of the votes will take place on 2nd of May. With inputs from Rajesh Raj, Rishi Kumar and Ramatyagi, Bureau Report, DD India.
And hectic campaigning is also underway in other poll-bound states of Kerala, Tamil Nadu. Of course, we talked about West Bengal and the Union Territory of Puducherry. Home Minister Amit Shah was in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, while JP Nadda was campaigning in Tamil Nadu on Saturday. Congress's Rahul Gandhi was also held a roadshow in Kerala.
Campaigning has reached to its peak in the 4 poll-bound states and 1 union territory as political leaders are leaving no stone unturned to woo the voters. After the completion of first and second phase of assembly elections in Assam and West Bengal, focus has now shifted to campaigning for the remaining states and 1 union territory, which goes to polls on 6th of April. In Tamil Nadu, campaigning for the 234 assembly constituencies is reaching a crescendo with various leaders crisscrossing the districts across the state. Senior BJP leader and Union Home Minister Amit Shah held a roadshow at the 1000 Lights constituency in Chennai. Amit Shah also held a public meeting at Thirunelveli where he slammed the DMK and Congress. He also appealed the people of Tamil Nadu to elect the government of double engine. BJP National President JP Nadda campaigned in Tamil Nadu. He lashed out at Congress and DMK for alleged 2G, 3G and 4G scams.
कांग्रेस पार्टी उसका चौथा जनरेशन चल रहा है 4G और दूसरी ओर ये डीएमके पार्टी ये 3G पार्टी है, तीसरा जनरेशन है। एक करुणानिधि जी, उनके बाद स्टालिन और अब ये उदयनिधि को भी मुख्यमंत्री बनाने के चक्कर में स्टालिन जी पूरे तमिलनाडु का भविष्य दांव पर लगाए हुए।
DMK and Congress party both are known for 2G, for 3G, for 4G, for G. All this is known. And when I say 2G, it is the 2 generation of corruption of Maran family. When I say 3G, it is 3 generation of corruption of Stalin family.
Leaders of DMK and Congress alliance also campaigned for their respective candidates. Hitting out at the AIA-DMK government in the state, the leaders of the alliance appealed the people for a change.
Is by BJP at the instance of ADMK trying to do something in the desperation that after seeing all the outcomes that DMK is going to win with thumbling majority more than 200 seats in the state. They are trying to do this, but they can only fail in this vain attempt.
National level leaders of all the major political fronts are holding various rallies and meetings across the state. Union Minister and BJP leader Amit Shah addressed a public meeting at Wayanad. He also held a road show in Kozhikode. Union Finance Minister and BJP leader Nirmala Sitharaman held a road show at Kannur. Kerala CM and CPIM leader Pinarayi Vijayan also campaigned. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi also held a road show and rally in Kerala.
राहुल बाबा जैसा टूरिस्ट पॉलिटिशियन नहीं देखा है. कहां अमेठी, कहां वायनाड, मगर वायनाड वालों यहां पर भी टूरिज्म करने के लिए ही आए हैं. वायनाड के विकास में कुछ नहीं होने वाला.
When is money put into your pocket? We call it Nyay. Every month, 72,000 rupees every year to the poorest people of Kerala right in their bank account.
In West Bengal, several star campaigners and party workers are holding election rallies and road shows. Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath held a road show from Ganga Rampur to Kaliwadi. State Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee also held many rallies and road shows. Mamata Banerjee addressed public meeting at Raidighi Stadium in South Pargana.
If you don't want implementation of NRC and NPR and no Hindu-Muslim division in West Bengal, then don't vote for BJP.
हम तो केवल एक ही बात कहने के लिए आए हैं. प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने लोक कल्याण का, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का विकास और सुशासन को जो मॉडल देश को दिया है, आखिर बंगाल की माताओं बहनों को और नौजवानों को इस विकास और सुशासन के मॉडल से अलग क्यों किया जा रहा है?
Voting for the third phase will be held on 6th of this month for 40 seats in Assam and 31 seats in West Bengal. On the same day, single-phase polling will also take place for assembly elections in Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Puducherry. Besides, the by-polls to Kanyakumari Lok Sabha seat in Tamil Nadu, where there are 12 candidates in the fray, and also for Malappuram parliamentary seat in Kerala. Bureau Report, DD India.
And the BJP has accused the West Bengal Chief Minister of running an extortion racket in West Bengal. Addressing a press conference, BJP spokesperson Gaurav Bhatia said that the syndicate of corruption will be finished if BJP comes to power in the state.
आज पश्चिम बंगाल में ममता बनर्जी की नाक के नीचे किस तरह से भ्रष्टाचार, कट मनी, सिंडिकेट राज चल रहा है. इन ऑडियो टेप में एक बड़ा खुलासा यह भी हो रहा है कि एक बड़ी ही व्यवस्थित प्रणाली उगाही की वहां पे चल रही है, जिसमें सरकारी तंत्र का उपयोग इन उगाही करने वालों को दिया जा रहा है.
Campaigning will end soon for the assembly elections in Kerala. This time the elections have been engineered on an unusual frenzy, not only with the voters but also with the political parties. Elections are the time of frantic activity by parties, but 2021 elections have brought in increased stakes for all the major three camps, that's the LDF, the UDF and the NDA.
Kerala Legislative Assembly building patiently awaits the new members as the summer sun beats down on it. The cacophony of campaigning is set to subside by 4th April, but the conversations and political corridors are agog with speculations and many theories. One aspect which is common in all the political discourse is that these elections will steer the state to a new path. Whether it be LDF or the UDF or the NDA, 2021 elections have come to acquire greater significance and importance. Political commentators believe that it is a crucial point for all the parties.
Congress party is concerned, this election is very crucial. In many places where Congress party is weakening, there BJP is making inroads. Of course, when BJP is emerging, the LDF vote base is also declining. But it is very sure that it is for BJP making inroads more in Congress vote bank rather than in LDF vote bank.
The pressure is more on LDF and UDF because of the stakes both the camps find themselves in. More so with the UDF.
Election in Kerala is very crucial for all the three fronts. First of all, for the left front, led by the CPM, it is very crucial as they are in power nowhere in India, except in Kerala. So they are trying all their means and methods to retain power. As far as Kerala is considered as a very strong hold of the Congress. And the usual practice in Kerala is that there is the government comes to power in alternative 5 years. There is a cycle of change of government in every 5 years. So the Congress has rested all its hope on the general pattern that they would come back to power.
For Congress, the elections are a desperate attempt to wrest power in the state. With party leader Rahul Gandhi being an MP from here, the onus is all the more high. Many observers believe that the BJP's effort to make inroads in the left and the Congress-dominated seats will also be tested in these elections. It opened its account in Kerala in 2016. Whether it can build up on that or not is the talking point in many discussions. With senior leaders including Prime Minister making an all-out effort, party leaders believe that the results will be indeed interesting.
These are crucial elections for all the camps in Kerala, be it LDF, UDF or the BJP. The election results will perhaps decide that the parties will thrive or just survive, or rather struggle to revive after the elections are over in Kerala. But one thing is sure, these elections will pave the way for the future political course in Kerala. With cameraman Janardhan Raja, Ravi Dhiman, DD India, Thiruvananthapuram.
And now for some updates on the historic Dandi March. Mahatma Gandhi had left for Vanch from Daman on the 3rd of April in 1930. Treading on the same path of Gandhiji, the Padyatris followed the same routes. They were welcomed by people awaiting there. Children, women and locals who welcomed the Padyatris. Sikkim Chief Minister Prem Singh Tamang joined the Padyatris in Daman and accompanied the Padyatris up to Navsari. Chief Minister termed this yatra a historic one and said that the country is moving ahead on the path of progress after taking inspiration from Mahatma Gandhi's vision.
मैं तो बहुत खुश महसूस कर रहा हूँ क्योंकि ऐसा ऐतिहासिक जगह में हम पहली बार आया हूँ, वो भी ऐतिहासिक समय में जो भारत स्वातंत्र के 75 सालों का जो शुरुआत है 2022 में हो रहा है। तो इसके लिए मेरे लिए मैं खुशनसीब हूँ। इसके लिए मैं केंद्र सरकार, भारत सरकार को और मैं गुजरात सरकार को मैं बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूँ, सिक्किम सरकार की तरफ से और सिक्किम का सारा जनता की तरफ से।
And Union Minister of Environment Prakash Javadekar addressed the SRCC Business Conclave 2021 via video conferencing today. On Saturday, Javadekar said that climate change is a major issue for the world. Although India is not responsible for it, the country is definitely affected by climate change. He said it is important to find ways to safeguard ourselves from the changes in climate.
India is only 3% for carbon emissions over last century or 2 centuries. So we are not responsible for climate change. But because we are suffering, because we are vulnerable, and in any such crisis, in any such disasters, who suffers? The poor. And therefore, we have to be doing more actions to save ourselves.
President Ram Nath Kovind has sent his greetings to, let's talk about Sachin Vazir. The special NIA court has extended suspended assistant police officer Sachin Vazir's NIA custody till April 7th in connection with explosives found near Mukesh Ambani's residence on the 25th of February. Vazir was arrested on the 13th of March by the central agency that was charged with sections of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. The NIA told the court that they were not merely investigating the cases under UAPA but also several other cases related to him and sought an extension of his custody. In Chhattisgarh, at least 5 jawans were martyred and 12 jawans got injured in an encounter with Naxals in the Bijapur district. The martyred jawans include a jawan from the Cobra Battalion, 2 from the Bastaria Battalion and 2 from DRG. The encounter lasted for more than 3 hours. The Naxals also suffered heavy damages in the encounter. The body of a woman Naxal has been found from the site. An emergency meeting of police officers was convened following the report of the attack. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has extended his condolences to the families of those martyred. In a tweet, the Prime Minister said, and I quote, "My thoughts are with the families of those martyred while fighting Maoists in Chhattisgarh. The sacrifices of the brave martyrs will never be forgotten. May the injured recover at the earliest." Unquote. And Taiwanese leader Tsai Ing-wen paid her respects to the victims of the deadliest train accident in 7 decades after she visited those injured in the hospital. The crash, which killed at least 50 people and injured hundreds of others, occurred after the express train hit a truck that slid down a bank next to the track from a construction site. This is the Taiwanese president who visited the people in hospital. Taiwanese prosecutors released the bond, the manager of a construction site whose truck authorities believe caused the train accident. Flags across Taiwan were flying at half-mast to show respect to those killed in the accident. And the Ministry of External Affairs has expressed grief over the loss of lives in the railway accident in Taiwan. Spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs, Arindam Bakchi, in a tweet said, and I quote, "We are deeply saddened by the loss of so many lives in the railway accident in Taiwan. Our deepest condolences to the families and our prayers for the early recovery of those injured." President Ram Nath Kovind has sent his greetings to all fellow citizens on the eve of Easter. In a message, the President said, and I quote him, "On the auspicious occasion of Easter, I extend my best wishes and heartiest congratulations to all the fellow citizens, especially from the Christian community living in India and abroad. This festival commemorating the resurrection of Jesus Christ is celebrated with joy all over the world. Jesus Christ is a symbol of humanity, forgiveness, sacrifice, compassion and truth. His life teaches us peace, love and fraternity. On this joyous occasion, let's follow these values which will strengthen the bond of love, affection and harmony in our society and increase happiness and prosperity in our nation." Unquote. And that's it then in the News Night for tonight. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.
Researchers, 90 days and one mission to unravel the mysteries of Indian Ocean. Watch this DD exclusive as we bring you live on board of research vessel Sindhu Sadhana as researchers and scientists work day and night to find and unravel the secrets from the depths of Indian Ocean.